It's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
It's a very good evening, Zimbabwe. It is a Friday evening, Fire Friday, we call it here on ZiFM Sport. That's because there's a lot of fire sport to look forward to this coming weekend, and it looks like local sport will be slowly getting those gears grinding once again. And that story leads on the home front because Zimbabwe Rugby Union Chief Executive Officer Sifiso Made says they are looking at resuming their leagues if they get the green light to restart games. We'll be hearing the thoughts of the studio team, that is the ZiFM Sport team, being Mike Madoda, Chris Midzi, Alois Bunjira, Sean Tafirenyika, our producer, and me, Barry Menandi. But that's not the only story you can look forward to, because in international sports news, Rafael Nadal, who is seeking a record-extending 13th French Open title and a record-equaling 20th Grand Slam singles crown, has been handed a relatively tough path to this year's final at Roland Garros.
In Around the World in 60, we take off in the United Arab Emirates, where captain KL Rahul recorded the highest ever score by an Indian batsman in IPL history as he took Kings 11 Punjab to a comfortable victory over Virat Kohli's led Royal Challengers Bangalore. In South Africa, Bulls director of rugby Jake White announced a strong 30-man matchday squad led by Dwayne Vermeulen that will battle against the Sharks in this weekend's Superfan Saturday at Loftus Versfeld. And in the United States of America, Anthony Davis scored a game-high 34 points. LeBron James added 26 as the Lakers posted a 114-108 victory over the Denver Nuggets in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals in the early hours of the morning.
We'll then take a quick breather with our play of the day, Fire Friday, and then it's the beautiful game in the second half of the show. We go to Hungary, where Bayern Munich beat Sevilla 2-1 after extra time to lift the UEFA Super Cup and complete a quadruple under coach Hansi Flick in the first European game played with over 20,000 fans in the stands. We'll begin a weekend preview in the Premier League, where promoted West Bromwich Albion will be hoping to secure their first points of the season when they welcome Chelsea to the Hawthorns tomorrow, while on Sunday, City boss Pep Guardiola says he has 13 fit senior players only available for their clash with Leicester. It's over to Italy, where Andrea Pirlo's new look Juventus face their first major test this season on Sunday when the Serie A champions tackle Roma. And in Germany, Bayer Leverkusen will be looking to register their first Bundesliga win of the season when they face an impressive RB Leipzig tomorrow.
But first, our power play, and today we go Niger. This is Lil Kesh. It's all the way.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Our social media handles are active, up and running, so let's keep these conversations around sport going all the time. ZiFM Sport is a handle to follow on all platforms, including YouTube. And then in our individual capacities, at Mike Madoda, at Chris Midzi, at Gazaman14 for Alois, at Sean Tafirenyika, at Mark Pozzo, and at Barry Menandi. Let's start on the home front as we promised, and we've got rugby news today where Zimbabwe Rugby Union Chief Executive Officer Sifiso Made says they are looking at resuming their leagues if they get the green light to restart games. The ZRU have written to the government through the Sport and Recreation Commission to get clearance. The union had cancelled all leagues, including the top flight and schools, for the year. However, they have renewed hope authorities will allow games to rebound. This is what he had to say. We're waiting for further communication from the SRC. We wrote a letter to them seeking permission to restart games. We're hoping that the green light will come and we resume our league games as well as start the Sevens League. Now, we will have a couple of approaches to finish the unfinished leagues. Maybe we will adopt a mini tournament approach. We will definitely see what strategy will take a route. So it looks like Zimbabwe Rugby is looking at restarting, Mike, and it's certainly well in order given that there is a loosening of the lockdown regulations, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Barry. The lockdown has had a very negative impact on Zimbabwe Rugby at two levels, primarily at the local level where our players who are playing, of course, in our semi-professional clubs have not been able to have game time. They've not been able to practice. And of course, that's taken a toll on them at a personal level, physically, as athletes. And then secondly, our national teams have not been able to participate in the continental competitions that they normally participate in. And these are the continental competitions where they would have been able to derive not just exposure for our players, not just game time for our players, but also a bit of money that comes by way of TV rights, especially with the participation in the competitions in South Africa, where SuperSport, of course, is a big player in the TV rights scene or on the TV rights scene in that country. So this is a positive development for Zimbabwe Rugby, and we carried that story, I think, last week where we were talking about some of the fundraising initiatives that have come out of Zimbabwe Rugby, and you've got to give them credit because it was all in anticipation of this development that they would have the resources to be able to fire up the sport, as it were, if they were ever given the green light to return.
Yeah, and it looks like since that the writing of that letter to the SRC becomes the first step towards seeing definitely domestic competition restart, and then not only that, hopefully as Rugby Africa itself starts to get those gears grinding as well, international competition. It's a sport, Chris, that doesn't generate that much revenue generally, and so you got to think that the lockdown, where there have been no games, there's been no activity, and the rugby World Rugby grant coming through, but only in a minimal perspective, this is a sport that must be struggling at the moment.
It must be struggling at the moment, and like Mike said, the struggles on a couple of fronts. For the players personally, I think rugby in this country, especially in the if you take a look at, for example, if under 21s generally, it's a platform for them to be able to it's a platform for them to expose themselves and then also possibly to go apply their trade elsewhere. Like South Africa, for example, there's a lot of rugby players who go out there, get scholarships. And I think in terms of their finances at Zimbabwe Rugby, they've made those movements to get some sort of funding going at the moment. There's a little bit that comes from competition, but they haven't had access to that this basically during the COVID lockdown. So getting things going again, getting competitions going again, I think is incredibly important for Zimbabwe Rugby to be able to have some sort of money flowing. And if the SRC does give them the go-ahead, we're going to see, I think, a lot more positive, as it were, in terms of their bank balances over at Zimbabwe Rugby.
Barry, the one thing that does concern me, though, about the return of rugby, especially at a local level, is what are our clubs playing for? We know that we don't have a viable national league that's going. We know it certainly doesn't have a headline sponsor. So what are our clubs and our players playing for? I think that's something that the Zimbabwe Rugby Union needs to come out very clearly and let us know, because it can't be that just that players and clubs are playing for match fitness and for perhaps the selectors to run their eye over them and hope that they're selected for the national team. So I think they need to work a lot harder as well behind the scenes to make sure that they're able to bag that headline sponsor that's able to fund a viable national league.
It's an important point that rugby needs to play with the support of the corporate sector, because I think there are a lot of eyeballs on rugby generally. Rugby is enjoyed across the country, and if it is backed at least the players can play for something. I want to bring you into the conversation, Alois, very quickly, and it has to do with how detrimental the year 2020 has been. Ordinarily, we would have seen a viable school season, obviously, which is premised on the school's rugby festival, which precedes the school season and then ultimately culminates in the holding and travel to the Currie Cup, wherein what Chris was talking about, various boys are scouted by universities, by academies and by clubs in South Africa. That hasn't happened this year. And if a boy is an upper six, according to the Zimbabwe government, he's writing exams, he's going to be going to varsity. Good luck to these boys. It's a very sad development, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is indeed a very sad development.
Craven can actually Currie Cup.
We can actually safely say that this 2020 is actually a write-off for a lot of people. You know, it has been a very, very bad year. Like we're saying, especially sport-wise, you know, you can't stay for 2-3 months without playing competitive sport and still be at the same cutting edge state. You won't be. There's a serious deterioration as far as sporting ability is concerned. So these boys have been done a very terrible blow. Not just the kids at school, even the Premier League as well, everywhere where sport is. But look, like you were saying about scholarships, if a school kid was hoping for a scholarship to go into varsity next season, this is gone. If he's writing his A-levels, it's gone. He's not going to get that scholarship anymore. You know, so that's actually one of those things that has actually affected the whole 2020 season, especially with the school children, even if their sharpness as well. 6 months. Without competitive sport, you are not as sharp as you. That development is stunted, and somehow you might not even reach your full potential just because of the disturbances of the 6 months that you have not been playing sport. So it's very unfortunate that we have had this kind of situation. I'm really sorry about the kids that have been affected, because this is a big issue.
It's a very sad blow, and in truth, our hearts go out to those who have been affected in that way, not least of all those who have been affected by COVID-19 generally. There's a physical toil, there's a financial strain as well, and now, as we're pointing out, there's also an educational and a future strain that is taking place as a result of COVID-19, because scholarships are no longer on the cards or table if they were there before. There's a lot that needs to be done to sort out 2020, and it may take as many as 5 to 6 years before we see the back of this year. But ZRU say they're looking at domestic league kicking off once again. We'll keep an eye on that one.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Some local sports news for you heading into the weekend, starting with cricket, where Zimbabwe cricket officials don't expect any challenges in Chevron's coach Lauchandra Rajput getting a visa to lead the team into Pakistan next month. Rajput is a former India batsman and has been in his homeland since the outbreak of the COVID-19 outbreak. Zimbabwe cricket chairperson Tavengwa Mkhuhlane said that they'll request their Pakistani counterparts to issue a visa for Rajput to take charge of the team in Pakistan. The Chevrons will play 3 one-day internationals and 3 T20 internationals in Multan and Rawalpindi between the 30th of October and the 10th of November. Swimming news for you. Zimbabwe swimming chairperson Tracy Dorman confirmed that they have been given the go-ahead for the season to start. Harare is expected to have the first meet tomorrow at Les Brown swimming pool. Other provinces are expected to follow suit soon. Harare Amateur Swimming Public Relations Officer Shigerai Mutetwa said that they were having their first gala tomorrow for seniors. Juniors will, however, not be allowed to participate in the meet. Let's wrap it up with news out of the Castle Premier Soccer League, where some Premier Soccer League clubs have poured cold water on expected resumptions of football this year, questioning the feasibility of playing the mini league format proposed by the government and then getting back to the normal format next season. Almost 2 weeks after the government presented a raft of proposals for consideration by ZiFM, which could see the restart of the game in mini league format, with 4 venues having been proposed for the 18 Premier Soccer League sides. Clubs, which are supposed to be the main actors, are still in the dark over fundamental issues.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda. You can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
From the front of the grid to the back of the net, it's ZiFM Sport. International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play.
All right, keep your messages and your thoughts coming through on our interactive platform. Twitter handle to follow and interact with is at ZiFM Sport. We also want your predictions on the big sports event of this weekend. Arguably the biggest event, though, is the French Open, and it all gets underway on Sunday with Rafael Nadal seeking a record-extending 13th French Open title and a record-equaling 20th Grand Slam singles crown. But he has been handed a relatively tough path to this year's final at Roland Garros. The Spaniard will take on Bulgaria's Igor Gerasimov in the first round and faces a potential last 8 clash with US Open runner-up Alexander Zverev, who has never made it past the quarterfinals at the clay court Grand Slam. Nadal then faces a possible semi-final clash against last year's runner-up and US Open winner Dominic Thiem. It looks tough on paper, Barry, if you consider that some of the players that we've talked about, Zverev and Thiem, are some of the upcoming stars on the ATP Tour. But this is a venue that Rafael Nadal has dominated like no other player before him.
No, guys, let's hand on heart tell the truth. This is just trying to make it seem competitive. This guy owns Roland Garros. The only thing preventing them from changing the name of Centre Court at Roland Garros is the fact that Rafael Nadal is still playing. In truth, he is imperious on clay. He knows the surface. He loves the surface, can deliver on the surface. The only thing, and it's hard in sport to say it's a gimme because you never know what's going to happen, but the only thing that could make Rafael Nadal not progress and win another title at Roland Garros is Rafael Nadal. If he makes mistakes, if he's not at the top of his game, if he's the one who's off, then possibly the other guys have a chance. If he brings it even at 90%, Rafael Nadal walks it.
Chris, there will also be a lot of scrutiny, not just on Rafael Nadal, but on Novak Djokovic. He had a rather abysmal outing in New York at the US Open, both on and off the court, and he'll be looking to redeem himself both on and off the court in Paris.
Definitely. I think when you take a look at his performance on the court, I think he was well on his way. It's just he's unable to handle his emotions and manage them well on the court when things are not going his way. And I think the punishment that was handed down was appropriate. I think coming into this one, he's going to try as much as possible to get as far along as he can. And also, I think he's going to try and keep the politics to a minimum this time. I think his off-court activities also had an impact on his performance on the court. You don't want to be caught on the wrong side of, I'm going to say, societal waves and changes at the moment. I think he was getting caught up in that, which he shouldn't be, and it had an impact on his US Open performance. Going into this, he needs to really focus, stay away from the politics and creating a social justice mess for himself.
So I'm sure we can all agree that Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal will be the two leading players in Paris alongside Dominic Thiem as well as Alexander Zverev. But there are those that do think that there are a couple of players who are capable of causing an upset, not least of all Denis Shapovalov as well as Stefanos Tsitsipas, who are being tipped by former tennis great Nicolas Pereira.
Well, that's a tough one. I will be looking at Tsitsipas if he manages to get through the Chorich incident in New York. Mm-hmm. I like him. Shapovalov, let's see how he plays on the clay. But there are a lot of players that did not make the trip to New York that might have a better chance than they thought initially going into the clay without having to do that transition.
Alois, I know you love the big stars of sport, but there you've got Nicolas Pereira tipping two outsiders for the title. Is this something that tennis could do with, especially at the French Open where Rafael Nadal has been virtually unbeatable? Could we do with a new champion, a new name, an outsider hoisting the trophy at the end of the tournament?
Mike, sometimes, I've always said that every sport, it needs its big stars, and it needs these big stars to keep on performing so that the up and coming ones keep on coming to compete with the big stars so that we can actually improve our competitiveness. I don't like the idea of a whole lot of new stars coming in, but once in a while, yes, it's actually quite good for a sport to actually have a newcomer coming in to hoist it, and we say wow, and we hope that one will join the elite. But I'm not for changing of hands all the time. I like a sport which has got big stars that are dominating.
Okay, one name each, guys, for the men's title. Starting with Chris.
I'm going to go safe. I'm going to go with a sure bet, Rafael Nadal.
Barry?
Heart says Novak Djokovic, head says Rafael Nadal.
And Bunj?
I'm with Barry right there because I know Rafael Nadal is the king of the clay, so I'm not sure he's going to lose this one.
All right, let's go to the ladies' draw where things could be interesting. Now, Simona Halep is the favorite to win at Roland Garros this year, and that's according to Karolina Pliskova after facing her in Rome. Halep won her maiden Grand Slam in Paris in 2018 before adding a Wimbledon title to her legacy a year later. This year, she has won 3 tournaments despite the lengthy suspension of the WTA Tour due to the coronavirus crisis. So Simona Halep, the favorite, Naomi Osaka is missing, Barry. I guess it's one of those where Simona Halep could continue to add onto the Grand Slams.
Yeah, and listen, fair dues to her. I think that because of those that are missing, the unique situation we find ourselves in, and also being a surface where, she can do the business, I think there's a good chance that Simona Halep could actually put it all.
And now Serena Williams obviously can never be discounted as she launches another bid for a record equaling 24th Grand Slam singles title. But Roland Garros, Chris, is her least favorite surface. She doesn't like clay, even though she's won 3 times. Let's give her credit. There are very few players out there who's won 3 times in Paris on the ladies' tour. But she's getting slower, she's getting older, and on a surface where you need to generate the power, you need to generate the speed, and you are called on to run a lot more, it's going to be tough on Serena to win in Paris.
It's going to be incredibly tough. It requires a lot of strength, like you said, a lot more speed, a lot more agility, and she has less and less of that, and we see it every tournament. I think she could have a good run in, but I don't think this is going to be the 24th Grand Slam for Serena. I think this is going to be incredibly tough. And I think it's also going to be tough because when it comes to the women's draw, especially now that we have 2 players, Naomi Osaka, who's not, one of them being Naomi Osaka, who's not going to be there, it almost makes it topsy-turvy and it's almost anyone's game. And I don't see Serena making that 24th on clay.
Okay, now former tennis player Jill Craybas says that there'll be a lot of pressure on Serena Williams in Paris.
Right. I feel like she's been feeling the pressure for a little bit now. We've been talking about the 24 for so long. And she came out and admitted, I think last year or the year before, something that she was starting to feel that pressure. And I felt like the fact that she accepted that, I feel like would help her a little bit. But Nico has a good point with the footwork. And the fact that the conditions may be heavier this year could be a factor because Serena likes to try and power through her opponent. So that's going to be interesting to see how she moves.
Barry and Andy, Craybas is talking about pressure. Chris reckons that she's just not up to it to bag number 24. How long can we realistically expect Serena Williams to go on playing at this top level?
The candle was burning. Now, shucks, I think we're looking at the dying embers of us hoping that this is going to happen for Serena. And it's sad to say because she is a legend of the game, but let's be honest, she's still achieving things that at her age she shouldn't be achieving. So who knows, she may surprise us all, and it will be a pleasant surprise if she can bag just one more, but it doesn't look likely.
Okay, doesn't look likely for Serena Williams, but there are some players out there who do have hope. Gabina Muguruza is certainly one. She defeated Serena Williams in the 2016 final. She's another contender, certainly, while former world number 1 Victoria Azarenka is hoping to take the momentum from her run to the US Open final into the clay swing. Those are some of the players that could just cause an upset out in Paris. One name, Chris, I know it's certainly not Serena. Give me one name.
This is really tough. The women's side is really tough because of just the fluctuations. I'm going to go Simona Halep. If she's going to carry her form from Paris into this, then Simona Halep.
Barry, do you disagree? Let's just cut the conversation right here, because I agree with Chris. I'm going with Simona Halep. Are you looking to anyone beyond her?
To be different from you guys, let me go with Vika Azarenka.
Hi, this is Benjamin Locke. I'm on the Zimbabwe Davis Cup team, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Only DSTV brings you the very best football action. Catch all the action from the most popular league in the world, the English Premier League, with some of the world's biggest stars in Sadio Mane, Harry Kane, Sergio Aguero, and Virgil van Dijk.
Oh, they done it! I cannot believe it!
Catch all the action on the brand new SuperSport Premier League channel on channel 223.
Oh, wow!
We have the world's best football, only on DSTV.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
Around the World in 60 is proudly brought to you by DSTV. We take off from the United Arab Emirates, where captain KL Rahul recorded the highest ever score by an Indian batsman in IPL history as he took Kings 11 Punjab to a comfortable victory over Virat Kohli's led Royal Challengers Bangalore. Rahul, in his second outing as skipper, was dropped twice by Kohli before going on to smash an unbeaten 132 off just 69 deliveries, the first century of the 2020 season, to help Punjab post a massive 206 for 3 and a 97-run win. We head over to South Africa, where Bulls director of rugby Jake White announced a strong 30-man matchday squad led by Dwayne Vermeulen that will battle against the Sharks in this weekend's Superfan Saturday at Loftus Versfeld. Vermeulen will lead the Bulls squad, which includes many of the new signings made during the coronavirus-enforced off-season. The backs are loaded with speed and have the experience of several Springboks, including Gio Aplon Mornestein, Ambrose Papier, and Cornel Hendricks. We'll touch down in the United States, where Anthony Davis scored a game-high 34 points. LeBron James added 26 as the Lakers posted a 114-108 victory over the Denver Nuggets in Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals in the early hours of the morning. LA Lakers led each of their previous two series 3-1 before closing out the Portland Trail Blazers and Houston Rockets on their first opportunity to advance. Meanwhile, the third-seeded Nuggets find themselves in familiar territory, facing a 3-1 deficit. Game 5 is scheduled for early hours of Sunday morning. The Grandstand channel, launched with the revamp of SuperSport's channel Reshuffle recently, is designed to bring you the best of live sporting action throughout the day. With the focus primarily on the premium sports and not the football ones that sit right next to it, you can see the pick of rugby, cricket, golf, motorsport, tennis, and more as the day's sporting offering unfolds.
Hi, I'm Warriors coach Zdravko Logarušić, and you are listening to ZiFM Sport.
Sports with a difference.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport.
We've got an exciting build-up a bit later on during the beautiful game. But before we get there, let's take a look at the big game that was played last night. Bayern Munich, winners of the UEFA Champions League, beat Sevilla, winners of the Europa League, 2-1 after extra time to lift the UEFA Super Cup and complete a quadruple under coach Hansi Flick in the first European game played with some fans in the stands since the sport returned. Substitute Javi Martinez headed in the winner in the 104th minute after Europa League winner Sevilla had taken a 13th minute lead through Lucas Ocampos penalty, and Bayern leveled through Leon Goretzka in the 34th minute. Let's hear from Bayern Munich coach Hansi Flick.
As far as the team is concerned, one simply has to say the mentality of how they came back into the game after being 1-0 down is simply sensational. Also, Robert Lewandowski, the setup for Leon Goretzka's goal was sensational, world class. He didn't even see the ball at some point and still knew exactly where it would come down. That's just sensational. It shows his class, his quality, and of course we are happy that we got back into the game through that goal. Obviously, it was a very intense game for both teams, and in the end I think we deserved to win because we had more actions in the opposing penalty box.
Now, Alois, if you watched the game, it would have been very easy to see that Bayern were quite easily the better side, even though Sevilla took the lead.
Yeah, Mike, I watched the match, and like I said last time, that Bayern Munich, they are actually in a league of their own. You know, they are just dominating everybody. You know, they are so confident the way they play. You know, they know what they are doing. Yes, Sevilla took the lead, but you know what? One could actually feel that it's only a matter of time before Bayern can just come back and win this one, you know, because they are so superior. At the moment, there's no doubt that Bayern Munich are actually the best club in the world of football right now, and nobody can dispute that. And when you look at it, like now, if they maintain the way they are playing right now, they might just as well retain the Champions League again.
Alois is talking about retaining the Champions League, Barry, and the confidence and the brilliance that Bayern Munich is showing right now. It's in no small measure due to the tactical astuteness of Hansi Flick, who's turned them around from a season of near crisis to a season of total dominance.
Absolutely, Mike, and you wonder how this man was sitting there as assistant to Niko Kovac, and yet he was the answer that Bayern Munich was sorely looking for. And you can see how he's transformed the team in the way that they play, the intensity at which they play. You look at some of the muscle mass that those players have built. Clearly, he's a guy who loves the fight and wants his players ready for the fight. Bayern Munich are going to be a tough act to follow, tough act to beat. Sevilla showed how, to an extent, because if you can sort of be disciplined and be orderly in your defense, Bayern Munich can find it a little bit hard. They did create some chances, but not nearly enough to score like the 7s and 8s that we sometimes see them score. So perhaps that tape of Sevilla last night can go to various clubs and they can see how to beat this side, but certainly feather in the cap of Hansi Flick.
Now, one of the things that's come about, Chris, from UEFA in the lead up to this game was the confirmation that they made that teams will now be able to make 5 substitutions in UEFA competitions for the rest of the season. That was announced by their president, Alexander Seferin. Is this a good move? We've seen the likes of the English Premier League turn it down. But UEFA are sticking with it. They are sticking with it, saying that as a result of COVID-19, 5 substitutes, it's game on.
I think it's a good way to manage the workload in terms of individual players, their workload, the workload of the team. Because if you take a look at what's happened because of coronavirus, there hasn't really been a break for some of these teams that have been playing continuously, and they will do so for the next 12 or so months. And because of that, I think it's a good move by UEFA to ensure that you don't completely burn out players, that play is still competitive, and that play is not just down to who's the fitter team, and that it still remains competitive. So I think it's a good move. The Premier League ignoring it, well, they are the Premier League, and they like to hold themselves to different standards. But for me, I think it's a good move by UEFA.
Yeah, Alois, there are those like the English Premier League who say that it favors the bigger, richer sides because they've got more quality in their sides, more depth in their sides. So when they bring on the fifth substitute is just as good as the first one. But the smaller sides don't have that depth of quality. What are your thoughts regards that?
Yeah, I agree with them 100%. You know, honestly speaking, look at Manchester City. When they played this first match, they had a lot of senior players out injured, but they still came back with equally good players to actually play against the opposition. So I think the smaller clubs are within their rights. Yes, they are justified for saying that. I think it should remain as it is. I don't like the idea of having 5 substitutes anyway.
But Alois, I think that to look at it, this is just the English being traditionalist. Yes, fine. You may not agree with it, but I think of it from this perspective. Let's look at a practical scenario. After the restart in England, when Project Restart was given the go-ahead, you look at the Liverpool as a case study. Liverpool dropped more points after the restart than they did the entire season before the restart, and that was with 5 substitutes. So it doesn't follow necessarily that the bigger clubs are going to have an unfair advantage. I think the smaller clubs are just running scared. And I believe that in terms of managing the workload for teams, this 5 substitute rule should obtain at least until after the Euros. The Euros should be the...
Barry, I'm with Alois on this one, that yes, you can say that Liverpool dropped more points, and I do understand the arguments around managing the workload, but you cannot tell me that it doesn't favour the big sides, because the big sides, you saw Manchester United. I believe that's one of the reasons why Manchester United had such a strong finish to the season, because they were able to bring in 5 substitutes, and all of them really, really top players. You know, when you take a look at teams like Burnley, you know, they don't have that quality. When they're bringing in the 4th and the 5th substitute, he's someone who's from the under-23s. He's someone who's from the development team. So when it comes to competitiveness, wait, let me finish. If we use Bayern Munich as an example, compare the quality that Bayern Munich has in their squad to, let's say, Rangers from Scotland. Bayern Munich last season were able to bring in Coutinho as a 5th substitute. Rangers don't have that luxury. So the impact that the bench of the richer, wealthier, better star-studded sides has off the bench is greater than the smaller sides. That's why they win the Premier League. It's not because of tradition. It's because they are being fair.
The cream rises to the top. All these teams in England are earning oodles of boodle. They're earning lots of kites. What they need to do is spend it. Burnley
Barry.
Hold the phone.
Burnley cannot spend, Barry.
I think
they cannot spend at the level of Chelsea. Hold on. At the level of City.
Throughout the Burnley squad, they don't have a single player to match up to any of the ones on the roster of Man City. So already the argument is self-defeating. They shop in different stores. Different stores.
No,
it's not.
Look, Barry, look at it this way. You have got a Coutinho coming in the last 10 minutes, a fresh world-class player, playing against a tired, average defender.
I'm talking about England.
Even in England, Barry, it's the same thing. Let's take a look at Chelsea. Look at Chelsea. Look at the bench that Chelsea is going to have. The quality. Chelsea could actually have a bench this season that has got Mason Mount, that has got Pulisic, that has got Kai Havertz, that got players of that quality. And you can't compare that to a Burnley or to a Sheffield United or to an Aston Villa, who are having to bring in some.
But can we compare
3 substitutes?
Can we compare the starting lineup of Burnley to the starting lineup of Chelsea?
No, we are not talking about starting lineups. We're talking about substitutions.
The substitutions, Barry, because there is tiredness and fatigue to take care of. Remember, we were talking about. Imagine somebody has been run ragged by Silva, and then you substitute Silva. You put in Stanley. A fresh sign. It's unfair. Imagine now doing it 5 times. 5 times.
It's a very controversial one, no doubt. Of course, it's something that we can continue discussing even off air. Get in touch with us with your thoughts. Do you favor the 3 subs traditionally, or are you with UEFA? Barry and Chris with the 5 subs. Alois and I seem to think that they favor the big star-studded sides. Get in touch with us on Twitter at ZiFM Sport.
Let's get into England. Notable Carabao Cup results. Chelsea 6-0 over Barnsley. They progress. Everton 5-2 over Fleetwood Town. Arsenal 2-0 over Leicester City. Aston Villa progressed courtesy of a 3-0 win over Bristol City. The Colts team of Liverpool prevailing 7-2 over Lincoln City, and then Manchester City 2-1 over Bournemouth. But there's league action this weekend. Now, promoted West Bromwich Albion will be hoping to secure their first points of the season tomorrow when they welcome Chelsea to the Hawthorns. The Baggies finished second in the championship under Slaven Bilic last season, but have found their return to the top flight challenging with back-to-back defeats against Leicester City and Everton. Chelsea have taken 3 points from their opening 2 games, and they will be fancying their chances of doubling that total when they travel to the Midlands. On paper, Alois, a bit of a mismatch, but we've seen West Bromwich Albion play some pretty stuff under Slaven Bilic. What it has to be is possibly more than attractive but effective against a very good Chelsea side.
Yeah, we can say that it's actually unbalanced at the moment. Mike talked about Chelsea and the depth that they've got at the moment, and it's going to be a struggle. Yes, West Brom, they're a formidable side. They can actually play, when you are playing tactically, sometimes when you're in a weaker opposition, you actually tend to actually play more tactical. That can save you. You don't want to go toe to toe with a more superior opponent. But with the ammunition that Chelsea have, I don't think that they will struggle against West Brom.
Yeah, not likely to struggle against West Brom. They've only lost to Liverpool so far in the league, and you can forgive them that, Chris, because these are the defending champions, and also in that game they went down to 10 men. But when you look at the glut of talent that they've got at Chelsea, this one goes one way.
This one goes one way. If you take a look at that performance recently, 6-0 EFL Cup victory. I think when you take a look at, first of all, the spread of the goals from that, you take a look at like a player like Kai Havertz, who everyone's been looking at, say, okay, is he going to be performing the way he's expected to, the way you'd pay, how much was the signing? Over £70 million. If you're going to be having a player like that performing at his best, scoring hat tricks, then obviously I think when you come across a side like West Brom, it's almost a done deal if those players show up on the day. Obviously, they're still, getting into the swing of things, but I think after that match, we can see clearly that Chelsea players are gelling well, and going up against West Brom, it's going to be a clean sweep, I think.
Now on Sunday, it's a battle of the cities. Manchester City taking on Leicester City. Now, Manchester City boss Pep Guardiola says he has 13 fit senior players available for their clash with Leicester City. Are less than a week into the new season, but already have a lengthy list of absentees. Guardiola turned to youth for yesterday's 2-1 Carabao Cup victory over Bournemouth, and expects to have to call upon club's academy resources once again. He's decimated, but as you pointed out earlier, Mike, he's got a squad that is very deep and can put out a very good lineup against Leicester.
There are many managers that would love to have the problem that he has, especially with the quality that's in the Man City ranks. Man City should be able to still field a very, very strong side versus Leicester. Leicester have somewhat fallen away from the heady heights that they hit in their title-winning season and in the first half of last season. If this was in the first half of last season, I would have said, you know what, there could be an upset on the cards here, because Leicester were playing very well. They're very compact in defence. That combination between Johnny Evans and Soyuncu was working. They had the likes of Chilwell and Pereira. But you take a look at Leicester, I think Pereira is injured. Chilwell has been nicked by Chelsea. They are no longer the same side. I think Wilfred Ndidi is also out injured. I think he got injured in midweek in the Carabao Cup game. He's out for possibly another 3 months. So they've got injury problems of their own. So I don't think Pep Guardiola has got any excuses, to be honest. All the other sides are facing their own mini crisis at the moment through players being injured, or some players even being COVID infected.
Alois, the argument could be made that if Pep Guardiola is saying he's got 13 fit first-team players available, that means he's got 11 to select from, and 2 of his substitutes can be absolute quality, isn't it?
Yeah, we spoke about it. Imagine if it was Bentley that had on their roster that were fit to play. It could have been a disaster. But still, if Man City go in there and play, they will play, and I'm sure that they can actually get a few youngsters from their reserve side that I've registered, that they can actually get onto the field and play. So, and they can actually be of better quality than some of the Premier League teams have got as well. So he is crying, yes, we understand, but he will still have a good team that can trot out and actually win games.
Your weekend fixtures in England. Brighton host Manchester United. Crystal Palace takes on a bubbling, burning Everton side. West Bromwich Albion takes on Chelsea, as we said earlier. Burnley versus Southampton. It's Sheffield United who entertain Leeds. Tottenham Hotspur will host Newcastle United at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Meanwhile, at the Manchester City Etihad Stadium, it'll be Manchester City taking on Leicester City, while West Ham United takes on Wolves.
Let's wrap up the rest of Europe, starting with Serie A, where Andrea Pirlo's new-look Juventus faced their first major test this season on Sunday when the Serie A champions tackle Roma. Juventus kicked off their bid for a 10th consecutive league title with a 3-0 win over Sampdoria to hand Pirlo a win on his first ever match on the bench. But the 41-year-old will face a difficult second weekend in the Stadio Olimpico against a Roma side still smarting after being handed an opening round defeat at Verona for fielding an unregistered player. Andrea Pirlo looks to be choosing youth in his selection, in the sort of how he's building the team. You can see a direction that he's going in. Going up against this Roma side, I don't think they're going to struggle. Do you think so, Mike?
It'll be a competitive game. Roma is a very good side, but they are without Chris Smalling, who's still stuck in Manchester because United are unwilling so far to listen to the terms that Roma is offering. So he was a key player for them defensively last season. So it's a big blow for Roma not to have Chris Smalling. But taking a look at Juventus, still the better side, and I'm particularly excited about Dejan Kulusevski. He scored Juventus' first goal of the season in their first outing. Very good player. He seems to link up very well with the other attackers, seems to have a chemistry and an understanding with Cristiano Ronaldo. I would love to see how he performs on the grand stage. The Stadio Olimpico is the biggest stadium in Italy, of course, the stadium that we know carries a lot of history, a lot of tradition. And if he can perform on that stage versus a Roma side who are very competitive, then we know that Pirlo has got himself a genuine world beat on his hands.
Your key fixtures this weekend: Torino versus Atalanta, Inter Milan versus Fiorentina, Napoli versus Genoa, Crotone versus AC Milan, and that big one, Roma versus Juventus. Into the Bundesliga, where Bayer Leverkusen will be looking to register their first Bundesliga win of the season when they face an impressive RB Leipzig side tomorrow. Leverkusen were held to a goalless draw at Wolfsburg last week as Germany's top division resumed. It consequently stretched their winless streak on the road to 3 matches. However, they go into their next game having won 6 of their last 8 home matches, though it's a much-changed team at Peter Bosz's disposal. Alois, you take a look at that RB Leipzig side, especially just last season, very plucky side. This is going to be a tasty encounter.
Yeah, it is a tasty encounter. Leipzig, they are a very good side, but my only problem is they are this like Italian clubs. They come this season blowing hot and cold, and you think they have arrived, and you want to see more of their consistency. And the next season they drop back, and you don't know what is happening. So the season is just starting. We don't know what they can bring. So we just have to wait and see again, because they're just like I said, like your Napoli or Roma. You don't know what is in store for us this season. So let's wait and see after a few games, so then we can actually judge and gauge where they really are. Then we can actually start looking at mouth-watering games when they are playing against top teams.
Your key Bundesliga fixtures action actually starts tonight with Hertha Berlin versus Eintracht Frankfurt, Augsburg versus Borussia Dortmund, Schalke will be up against Werder Bremen, Hoffenheim against Bayern Munich.
We're out of time, but let's give you quick fixtures, your key fixtures out of La Liga. Real Madrid will be away at Real Betis, while Atletico Madrid will take on Granada. Barcelona gets their league campaign off and racing, the Ronald Koeman era against Villarreal at the Camp Nou. Meanwhile, in France, your notable weekend fixtures: Lorient takes on Lyon. Reims takes on Paris Saint-Germain with Marshall Munetti hopefully back for this one, and then Marseille will entertain Metz. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manandi, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.